Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon, and I'm the Dean of Graduate Studies at Charles Darwin University. Welcome to Outrider 14, How to Build Alternative Income Streams Both During and After a PhD. I'm sure you, just like I do, we believe in the public good. We believe in the intellectual's role in creating a transformation in our culture to do good. We agree with that. But the challenge we've got is that we've got to pay our bills. And we're all the precariat now. Every single one of us is one day away from being restructured out of our organisation. Our institutions, no matter how much we believe in the project of a university, these universities have let us down time and time again. The precarious nature of the workplace, both inside and outside the university, means that we now have to think about very deeply alternative income streams, ways to receive money in return for our work. So that's what we're going to do here. This is the third instalment in our research dissemination trilogy, with enormous thanks to Ellen. It was brilliant. We're getting real here. So in this session, we are going to explore the next stage of research dissemination, how income streams can emerge from it. So if you think about it, this is a win-win-win-win-win situation. You have research, you're able to move it to diverse audiences, you select significant platforms that enable that dissemination, and you enhance the quality of public debate because you're enabling high quality information to move around diverse portals. That's tremendous. This is called a freemium model. That is, the foundation for your model is free, open access materials. Tremendous. But as content proceeds to move between diverse platforms, in some of those platforms you receive an income stream, frequently via a subscription model. So why is this necessary? Well, you know what? And a lot of people will disagree radically with what I'm saying today. But let me tell you something. Let's have a chat about capitalism, shall we? There are two groups in higher education at the moment. There's the tenured, stable staff who have been able to stay in one country throughout their entire career and not have to move between too many cities or locations to stay and work. So that group have had and continue to have a predictable academic career. Now that group is small and shrinking in size. But then there's another group that's living precariously, really suffering, managing unstable work, living away from family and friends, absolutely in despair, and grinding out a really unstable living. Now, the problem is that first group does not grasp or understand the despair of that second group. And this Outrider this week is for that second group, building an alternative income stream so that you can pay your grocery bills, so that you can pay your electricity bill. For this group, alternative income streams are not about being an influencer. That's the least of our worries. This is necessary for survival. And it's necessary for survival in a higher education system that will dump us by the side of the road as soon as look at us, okay? This Outrider therefore offers 10 strategies for you today, to knowingly and carefully build alternative income streams over time. Now, there's no make $1 million here. There's no get rich quick scheme here. But there is a recognition that the deterritorialisation and disintermediation of media, so this is post-Web 2, post the read-write web, is providing new options and alternatives for you. You have a right to make a living, and you have a right to be recognised for your expertise. And remember, two of the most profitable companies in Europe are Springer and Elsevier. And why are they so profitable? Well, they charge author processing fees, and yet the peer review and the actual research and writing that academics do is provided for free. So their model makes incredible profit on the basis of free labour. And look, that free labour may have been all right in the past when we were dealing with a tenured academic workforce. And it meant that with that stability, academics were able to give back because they had personal and professional security. I get all of that. But that's no more. That's not our experience, and it will not be our experience. So here are 10 strategies to build an income stream. It's going to start small, but we need to start here. And the key is to ensure what we're all trying to do as a family is to make sure that you are not reliant singly on a university payroll, on a university payday. Okay, 1, build up your publishing and speaking nexus. Academic publishing rarely pays well for all the work that you do. Often the payments we receive are in the hundreds of dollars each year rather than the thousands of dollars each year. There can be surprises that we'll talk about, but there can be a moment where a really minor book takes off, and can I say to you, you never quite know which book that's going to be, but there can be a moment where a minor book takes off and it pays off your mortgage. That happened to me just over a decade ago. So we were about to, because we've moved from, this is my late husband and my current husband, we moved from place to place to place. And as we were moving between jobs, we were having to discharge a mortgage, and they're always a mess. So we're having to discharge a mortgage and muck about with that at point of sale and then move to the next location. And when we were just about to do that, literally within 3 days, a cheque arrived from a British publisher that took my breath away. Wasn't expecting it, had no idea it was coming, took the cheque, went into the bank, paid the mortgage. So surprises do happen, but mostly the reason why we publish academic books is to speak with and engage with other academics. I get that, and that's brilliant, and that's important. Except when we're thinking about a particular mode of dissemination, and that is public speaking. For those of you that are working in so many areas, and this is appropriate for so many colleagues, from the high arts right the way through to the experimental sciences, okay? Public health, all levels of education, from early childhood right the way to higher education studies. There are thousands of organisations that need you to be a speaker for them, for away days, for professional development, after dinner speeches. The list keeps going on and on and on. The diversity of speaking gigs is absolutely amazing. Okay, now there are plenty of organisations that want you to speak for free. #yawn. You may consider that appropriate if it's a non-profit or a small organisation that you have a political commitment to. That's great. Go for it. Not a problem. But my life changed about 25 years ago when a mate of mine gave me very good advice. And this mate was a great librarian, the legendary Grant Stone. Hi, Grant. Love you. You changed my life. Now, I was a very young academic, a B-level bunny academic in Perth in Western Australia, and I was a pretty good speaker, and I was doing all these free gigs all over Perth, right? And I didn't have much money. It was a very, very low salary. And so, the petrol and everything, I didn't have a lot of clothes, and so I was having to get all of that organised. So it was really costing me money I didn't have to do these free speaking gigs. And Grant could see what was going on here, and he took me aside as a really young human. And he said to me, Tara, make them pay you a speaking fee. And I looked at him a bit shy and, with a lot of uncertainty. And he said to me, these organisations have a budget line for catering for $1,000. And that catering exists to hear the speaker. So they're paying more for catering than they're paying for the person that's actually creating the session. Aren't you worth more than a muffin? So I started really slowly, sort of $100, $200, $500 for speaking fees. And currently I earn between $2,000 an hour and US $5,000 an hour to speak. Now, why this matters is your books may be loss leading. Your books may create a little bit of money, and that's fine. But the books are what give you the credibility, the calling card, if you will, to start to get the speaking money. And this credibility will summon all sorts of alternative income streams that we're going to talk about. And remember, this is not free money. These people are paying you a fair amount of dough, so you have to write a bespoke speech, you have to know it well, and you have to deliver. You can't have any excuses. Can't, oh, I'm feeling a bit sick. No. You've got to toughen up, princess, put on the big girl pants, and you've got to deliver every single time. And of course, then those speeches feed back and lift your book sales and create new public speaking opportunities. You can see what's happening here. And it's one of those weird situations that COVID and the Zoom-based culture only increased the international speaking opportunities that are available. Okay, so write well, write in interesting areas, and be ready to speak. Be aware of this alternative income stream that comes from books and public speaking. Don't do it for free. You are disrespecting your expertise. Aren't you worth more than a muffin? 2, paid journalism. Now, again, I know this is a controversial one, and there's a lot of conversation about the conversation. And now, I don't write for the conversation. I've been asked, obviously, but I don't. I don't judge people that write for the conversation. I wish them well. People make choices in their lives, and I respect those choices. Cool. But I don't write for the conversation because they don't pay their writers. And again, all of this might have been okay when academics had a stable payday, right? We don't. The conversation is subsidised by public money. It's subsidised by our universities. And yet they don't use that subsidy to pay the academic authors that create their content. So academics are subsidising the conversation, and it wouldn't exist without us. Now, I write paid journalism. So I work very hard, I deliver on brief, I make sure that everything is working well, it's the best work I can do, and I write particularly for the Times Higher Education, wonderful organisation, work with them for well over a decade and a half now, maybe longer, and they pay me for what I do. And through much of my career, actually, I was delivering a weekly column for them. Now, that weekly column changed my life. There's many of the jobs I've got in the last decade and a half I wouldn't have got without the Times Higher Education gig, for which I'm incredibly grateful. But can I say the Times Higher Education gig also changed my bank account. I was living in the UK at the time in one of those glorious Edwardian townhouses in Eastbourne. Now, Steve and I shouldn't have bought this place. It was way above financially what we could have done. We were paying way over both of our gross professorial salaries to try and just get the mortgage going. Okay, we never went out. We were conscious of every penny and every pound, right? So it was hard yakka, right? And then all of a sudden I produced a book called The University of Google, and it had a lot of publicity, sold very well, had a lot of publicity. That's great. Then the Times Higher Education editors approached me, the wonderful Anne Mortz, hello Anne approached me and said, would you write us a weekly column? So you can see how books may be loss leading, but they lead to incredible other paid opportunities. So let me just state, at this period when I was in the UK, I paid off that mortgage through the speaking gigs that I did and the Times Higher Education journalism. And through the speaking gigs and the Times Higher Education journalism, I earned more money than my university salary. Okay, and I just charged the mortgage. So by the way, there was another mortgage, a different mortgage from the one I talked about in the first gig. So as you can see, I've really deployed these alternative income streams to try and finance my future, to create stability and move forward in my life. So make a point of choosing journalism opportunities that pay you, at least something. And if you want to just start this process at a very small level, please go to the website that's called Authors Publish. Authors Publish, and click subscribe, and they send a weekly newsletter out to you that lists all the paid writing opportunities that are available. Another option that's a little bit more involved, but I think is going to be quite an important moment actually, is the Artifice. Now, the Artifice have now made a decision to pay authors, which is fantastic, and they have strong peer review. It's an interesting project. I think the income stream will be slow, but I think it's important. I've been watching it for the last 2 years, and I think the Artifice is going to be important. But can I say, with Authors Publish, that great sort of subscription newsletter, I've used them now for about 4 years, and I've written, got paid, delivered on brief, but also, can I say, I've discovered all sorts of new publishers that I would never have heard of. So have a think about that. 3, speaking of paid writing opportunities, Substack subscription. Now, we talked about blogs a couple of Outriders ago, and blogs are important. Hi, Doug, keep it going, mate. But there's a strong strategy in a new post-Web 2 environment to combine the blog and the newsletter functionality with an income stream emerging from it. So Substack is a design infrastructure, and it enables subscription newsletters, and it delivers it to subscribers with a paid model for that subscription. So payment and analytics, which is also interesting, are available. So Substack is ideal for academics and researchers. It's been used heavily in North America already. Australia's a little bit behind in this story. So subject matter experts express their views and their knowledge on this platform for a paid audience. So for me, Substack is the clearest definition of disintermediation and what it can do for academics. Authors are directly linked to their readers via this newsletter. So Substack from 2019 included podcasting into their suite of products. Video is coming. They also have a notes function on Substack to manage the mess that is now Twitter, nay Threads, nay I think it's X now. It's all going incredibly well. But the notes function on Substack is a way to enact microblogging as well, so watch that functionality. And can I say, this is a really large entity. This is not minor. There are 500,000 paying subscribers on this platform right now. And the key with the business model is that writers receive 90% of payments. And how the payments are organised, remember, subscription model, it's $5 a month or $30 a year, right? So this is not an advertising fueled model. It is a solid and important foundation for your income generation. It's a growing service. Therefore, absolutely trial out your expertise on blogs. And then when your research reaches a crucial point, then move your skills to Substack and build a paid following. Here we go. 4, Authors Republic and audiobooks. So an audiobook is obviously an audio reading of a book. It has a fascinating history. It emerged in the 1930s. Like so many innovations in media and technology, it emerged as a service for the visually impaired, for the blind. So blind children, blind adults, the talking book arrived. Fantastic. And the American Foundation for the Blind and the Library of Congress were the leaders in this. What an incredible project this was and is. And these programs are extended through the Second World War as veterans returned blind or visually impaired from the war. And of course, they had no Braille expertise or Braille exposure. So audiobooks became incredibly important to the socialisation of returned veterans. Amazing history, this. And they were originally created, as you can see, to enhance the life of the blind and visually impaired. But through the 1970s and the proliferation of the audio cassette, remember those? Audio cassette, all of a sudden the talking books audience started to widen enormously. Audiobooks became the industry standard, as the phrase, audiobook, from 1994. And really it was the audio cassettes, the platform, that created this new market. And management and leadership titles really started to dominate through the 70s and the 80s. By the mid-1990s, and hang on to yourself, by the mid-1990s, audio publishing was worth $1.5 billion a year in the US alone. So what happened through the mid-1990s is, of course, the proliferation of the internet, and particularly the World Wide Web. And then through iPod and iTunes, brand new ways of downloading and carrying content became possible. So what we've got is dissemination here of really high quality content created through domestic software and domestic hardware. So we don't need anything else. We can simply create content and upload it through an aggregator. So over the last 5 years, audiobooks have increased in their sales 20% a year. 20% a year. Lots of reasons for that growth. The iPodification of our culture in the early days, the iPhoneification of our culture in the last decade or so, and also the transformation of commutes and employment and dead time, either on public transport or in a car. So we've got different modes of leisure now with, of course, the iWatch and Fitbit cultures as well. So with this growth, colleagues, academics need to get into this space and get into the space now. We are experts. We have the high quality content. We can do this, okay? The key moment really in the history of audiobooks was incredibly recent, where Amazon bought Audible. Bang. So that means whenever our books exist on the Amazon site, you can see the audiobook nested into the entire suite and platform. So people can choose the platform through which they engage with your ideas. Now, I know academics have been slower to move into this market. And remember, audiobooks are not just fiction. They've never really been just fiction. Science has always been a very important part of audiobooks, as has leadership management and also self-help and professional development. Now, the key for us, and this is the trick I've learned in the last 10 years, is when we are signing our contracts with academic publishers, we need to exclude audiobooks overtly. What happens is you get a contract from a publisher and, these are the modes that they disseminate, but there's always sort of a category in the contract, about category 10, that says all other sort of rights are also sort of ours. Now, they'll never use those rights, but they're sort of covering themselves. So what I do when I'm engaging with publishers is I say, that's absolutely fine. I take out item 10 and I say, well, you can have all the subordinate rights for all sorts of international, foreign rights and so forth, but audiobook rights are excluded. So that means they've got all the right to that content except audiobooks, and therefore we can get on with this and create an income stream on our own. And it's very easy to do. The specifications are clear. We can use audible.com's upload service, www.acx.com, and all the specs are there and listed. It's not a problem. Now, don't be worried too much about the scale of those specs. Just record in the same place and at the same time every day, and the kit will work. Now, for our colleagues living in the UK, the US and Canada, you can work with Audible directly. Fantastic. For the rest of us who are living in the rest of the world, which of course is the bulk of the population, we can't use audible.com directly. We can't upload directly. But no fear, I found a workaround for you, which is absolutely fabulous. And by the way, the reason we can't upload directly to audible.com is that we don't pay tax in the US, Canada, or the UK. So here is the workaround. We need to go to an aggregator. Now, an aggregator is a middleman, middle woman, middle human, right? And what they do is they gather the content up and they disseminate it. So this means they disseminate it to all sorts of audiobook companies, audible.com included, but a whole series of others. I think they're now at 25 or 30 different distributors. So let's use Authors Republic, www.authorsrepublic.com. Check out their specs for audiobooks, which are of course identical to audible.com, and you will receive 70% of all the money that you make on the sales of those audiobooks, 70% of that money will be returned to you. And what you do is you upload each chapter, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and then Authors Republic takes all those files, checks them, makes sure that the specifications work, and if you've done something wrong, if we all do something wrong, they get back in touch with you and explain what's wrong and help you fix it, so it's all going well. And then they do a thing called stitching the files. They stitch the files together. And what that means is, you know that great thing about audiobooks where you listen to it for an hour and a half, go, oh, that's great, and then you stop. And then what stitching allows to happen is the next time you listen to that audiobook, the next day or 6 months later, the audiobook starts at the very point that you left it. So Audible is able to do that, and audiobooks are able to do that. So you upload your files, they stitch it together, and you are good to go. So how are you paid? Well, you're paid through PayPal, and this is pretty important. Now, many of us had sort of PayPal all those years ago, but please create a PayPal account if you don't already have one, and list yourself as a sole trader, as you would if you're on eBay, and then you're paid directly into your account, and yes, that is it. So audiobooks remain an incredible revenue stream for your future. 5, Chapbook. Oh yeah. Now a chapbook is a very small, very small publication of under 40 pages. It has a history from early modern Europe of street literature or pamphlets and pamphleteering. It also has a very, I would argue, distinguished history in popular culture, publishing ballads, nursery rhymes, children's literature, but also political products, which is fantastic. So the word chapbook was first used in the 19th century. So this was intentionally reading material for working class people who could not afford a book. So this, through its history, it varied in length enormously from 4 pages to 40 pages, and of course sold millions of copies. Magnificently, there is this modern history of the chapbook. The chapbook is back. Poetry in particular has found this incredible new platform, and fanzines have discovered a new platform. And of course, we now have online chapbooks, or e-chaps. Okay, so Stephen King, of course, has used chapbooks to trial out some of his books. I think he did it particularly with The Plant. And in 2019, the New York Review of Books and Celadon Books used chapbooks as a marketing tool. So they took a portion of a book and sold it as a chapbook to promote the longer book. Very interesting. There are also specialist chapbook publishers, and they are amazing. Bad Betty Publishers, Rinky Dink Publishers, and Black Ink is an Australian example. So the chapbook may have a very interesting role in your income generation strategy. It is a calling card to promote your work. Think about all those publishing, public speaking interfaces we talked about at the start of this Outrider. But now let's extend this chapbook just a little bit to 6 short books as a speaking and consultancy calling card. This is so important, and indeed colleagues have asked me to do an entire Outrider on the short book, which I may do if we've got enough interest. But let's present the fundamentals here. So a short monograph is between about 22 and 40,000 words in length. So it's about 3 articles with an intro and an outro. These are a really important part of publishing now because they're linked strongly with the e-book. They dominate the e-book. And for academics, it gives us an incredible platform for these projects that are longer than an article, but shorter than 70 or 80,000 words. And there are a lot of projects in that space. So Leonard Cassuto in the Chronicle for Higher Education, way back 2012, described, quote, the rise of the mini monograph, end of quote. So this movement is also described as short form publishing, with of course long form being the conventional monograph, 60 to 70,000 words in length. This mini monograph has a lot of fantastic characteristics. The publishing process is much, much faster. We're talking 12 weeks from zero to hero. It's accepted to be published and it appears. And that's incredibly important for so many topics. It means that topical research can remain topical. So often the mini monographs have a faster publishing speed than refereed articles. Wow. Now, in the old days, 10 years ago, a bookshop would have a lot of problems trying to sell a short book. Distribution would be a problem. But of course, that's not a problem on the Amazons. And it's not a problem for Apple. So Joseph Esposito used the great phrase that, quote, shorts are native to digital media, end of quote. The Kindle, the e-book have rendered all sorts of lengths fabulous and possible. So let's go through some examples if you're interested in this. Palgrave Pivot was, I think, the first publisher to do this, about 20 to 40,000 words, and the first Palgrave Pivot I saw was 2012. Emerald Points. Now, I've published 2 books with Emerald Points. I found them a very, very good publisher. So have a go with Emerald. They're interesting. Springer Brief. I've published with Springer Briefs 3 times. They've been transformative books in my career, and they have a deep commitment to all the disciplines, including the sciences. University presses are also part of this movement. So Stanford briefs run between 20 and 40,000 words in length, and Kate Weil stated that the same level of refereeing takes place in these Stanford briefs, but she argues that, quote, these are not brief books, but a new style of book, end of quote. Fabulous stuff. So she argues that these short books create new spaces for new types of academic writing. This is argument-driven writing. This transcends what we do. It's important. So if you want to claim a specialist space, offer an argument on a contemporary issue, present a coherent piece on a mode or a trope or a method, then this short book is really an option for you. But also remember, and my respects to everybody out there, I've been in this position. Say you're in a teaching only mode, say you're in a postdoc where you just got no time. I got into the short books when I was ahead of school. And basically I had no time except sort of the 2 hours in the morning when I got up sort of 2 to 4, right? And so I didn't want to give up on research. So the short book provided a really good project for me to do in difficult times. So do ponder that. And what happens is these books give you a front-loaded fee. So they pay you at the start for the book, and then you can build consultancies from it. 7, the YouTube Partner Program. For our visual crew thinking, am I going to open up a YouTube channel? Yes, open up a YouTube channel and enroll in the YouTube Partner Program. This means that creators are monetized. They're granted dough for the content that they create. You see, what happens on YouTube is advertisements are added to your product. Whatever you produce, like this video, whatever we produce, advertisements are added to it by YouTube, okay? And they add them anywhere. They add them in the middle, they add them at the start, they add them at the end, they do what they like. And the subscription model that YouTube has allowed is called a revenue sharing arrangement. This is the partnership program. So the moment you create a channel, please enroll. And the moment you reach, I think it's 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 viewing hours, you're able to get a monetized stream. Now, this is a low benchmark, so please enroll and wait for all the strategies that we've talked about here to gently and carefully build up your author platform. And then you have a control over your commercialization and an income stream. Because say you don't want to use any ads or commercials on YouTube. That's a great decision. No judgment, no stress at all. For some product, you don't want that. But remember, unless you are a partner with YouTube, they will add advertisements anyway, and in really bad positions. So the one thing about being a member of the partner program is you decide the commercialization of your product and where those advertisements go. Good option. 8, liberated syndication and perhaps partnering with the Substack podcast. Podcasting is important for thousands of reasons. One is as an income stream. Liberated Syndication, or Libsyn, is a podcasting host company that was formed in 2004. Now, I joined them soon after they were founded, and I've stayed with them ever since. I have found them excellent. They are now the oldest podcast hosting platform and have delivered more podcasts to the world than any other company. It was developed wonderfully by PhD students at the University of Pittsburgh, and they used the phrase liberated syndication because they wanted the proliferation of multiple voices to exist online. Fantastic project. Now, they, right from the start, had a very strong relationship with Apple iTunes, and by 2022, Tech Radar confirmed they were internationally the best podcast hosting platform. They also sell podcasts to advertisers. They did that from 2007, and this is the important bit, by November 2021, Libsyn was of such a size that they were able to bundle up the smaller podcasters, including academic podcasters, and start to brand up and sell that product as a job lot to advertisers. So again, the advertising was stitched in to the podcast. So start your podcast, distribute it from Libsyn, and activate and select an income stream that suits you at this point of your life. 9, here we go. Society of Authors and copyright payments. Join the Society of Authors the moment that your first book is published. They work with copyright agencies to collect payments for your content. Full stop. We as creators, we as rights holders, receive a payment if our content is used, and particularly if it's used commercially or in governmental or educational fora. So join the Society of Authors, receive a payment, and I receive a nice payment every single year. 1 year, this is my third mortgage story. 1 year, this payment paid off my mortgage. I've only had 3 mortgages. All 3 have been paid off by things that I've done in my publishing life. And what happened was, in this case, this is a weird one. Exciting. An Australian university had overused my book, The University of Google. And what had happened was, in the old days, people may still remember the distance education packages? You know, people used to sort of, this booklet would suddenly arrive for distance education students, right? So what had happened is they had over photocopied beyond legal rights the University of Google over and over again for 10 years throughout all their distance education materials. So all of a sudden, this error was discovered, and a lump sum payment arrived for me, copyright, $25,000. If you say it quickly, it's still a lot of money. And I was stunned, and I was amazed firstly that an Australian university would make such an error, but still moving on. I drove to the bank, the cheque was sort of sitting in the passenger seat, and I was like shaking, and I went into the bank and I paid off the mortgage with that $25,000 cheque. So never underestimate the power of copyright payments. Also for Australians and for my non-Australian viewers, please check what's available in your particular nation and jurisdiction. But we have the Australian Lending Rights Scheme. Please remember this. So Australian authors are compensated for our loss of income through the free use of our work in Australian public and educational libraries. So for further information, go to lendingrights@arts.gov.au. Wow. Every single year, I receive a good, solid payment from Lending Rights because my books are in Australian public libraries, which is terrific, and they're in university libraries and school libraries, and money is returned to me for that. Great stuff. And 10, here we go. Draft to digital. Yes, we're going there. Self-published books. This is a game changer. Now, I'm aware self-publishing has all sorts of connotations attached to it. I understand that. I log that. I've thought that a lot through history. But again, colleagues, the world has changed, and we must not romanticise academic publishers, right? I'm not suggesting for one moment that there's a parity between refereed scholarship. You know how much I believe in peer review, refereed scholarship and peer review, but considering how little academic publishers pay us as scholars, it is time to think about alternatives. Now, these alternatives may not be for you. They may not be for you now, and they certainly won't be for most or all of your projects. But this is an option. And as I said, please don't romanticise these academic publishers for 1 minute. So and of course they're making a huge amount of money on the basis of our free labour. Okay, so draft to digital is a new publishing environment, house, infrastructure that has simplified the Amazon Kindle model even further, just really like Authors Republic did for Audiobook. So this is the moment for academic self-publishing. The software is excellent, as is the D2D, draft to digital, authors pages. They allow you to present yourself and your book, and there's also a button that allows people to join your mailing list, so when a new piece of work is produced, they are notified that it exists. They've also created, and for authors like me, this is unbelievable, a UBL, a universal book link. So wherever a reader is in the world, they click that link and they can find where they can buy your book. Now, for people not in the United States, Canada and the United Kingdom, this is crucial. So my books sell all over the world through all the African nations, for which I'm incredibly grateful. And I've got a very, very large audience in the Middle Eastern nations, again, which I'm incredibly grateful for that. But it means, do I do a link in my books to, the US Amazon? Do I do the Australian Amazon? Do I do the Canadian Amazon? Well, the Universal Book Link allows, for those of us that do have an international readership, they can click that and find where our book can be. That's crucial, I think. Now, we pay income tax in our home country, but this book is distributed worldwide. Now, I've been watching this for a while now, and I'm about to do my first great experiment on draft to digital. And so far, as I'm going through the project, it's looking amazing. I've found them excellent so far. So park this option. It may not be useful for you now, but remember this for future projects. So for those of us, which of course includes me as an old goth, for those of us who are depressed by the state of our universities, who know that a hero is not going to arrive and save us, that these institutions are in a very, very sad state. We need to do something. And so what I've done today is given you 10 strategies when you can start to get some control over your life and over some income streams. Now, the only people who may laugh about these income streams are people who have never suffered wondering where the next grocery bill is going to come from, or how the hell you're going to pay that next electricity bill. I've been there a lot, and I understand how these alternative income streams can change your life. This is a freemium model. You can disseminate high quality information for the public good for free. But you're also creating new ways of thinking, being, writing, and creating. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.